Good evening, everybody. Wanted to take a chance to talk about this book right here. It's one of the ones I wrote, The Diocese Dilemma. Uh, this is actually a Dungeons and Dragons t-shirt. I'm not promoting Satanism, not promoting religion of any kind, really. Um, Probably should have chosen a different shirt, though, just for fun. But I wanted to talk about this one a little bit. So the premise of the book is if a priest, Catholic priest in this case, finds out that people are beyond committing mortal sins to the point where he believes they are beyond redemption, on beyond forgiveness on the mortal plane of existence. And he's kind of backed into a corner and he's frustrated and he's tired. And he decides that maybe they just need to meet St. Peter and let him sort it out. Does that make him a serial killer or does that make him doing God's work? And can he justify it to himself that he's really doing God's work instead of just killing people who need to be killed? Um, and is he helping the police, hurting the police? The premise to this book came from a lot of questions I had as a kid. Um, and primarily among those was I grew up Catholic, and it leaves it with a lot of questions like, hey, I'm supposed to go confess all my sins to this guy in a box who I don't know. Tell him all the bad stuff you've done, and he'll tell you what your punishment is. It'll be okay. And that leaves a kid with a lot of questions. It's at least left me with a lot of questions. And then you read this book that has a lot of punishments in it. It has a lot of bad things in it. It has a lot of here's what happens if you do wrong things in it. It has here's a bunch of punishments other people had in it. And it leaves you with a lot more questions. And primarily among them that I had over the years was, hey, I everybody does bad stuff. Everybody does sinful acts, whatever you want to call it. But God is a vengeful. The God the Catholics talk about is a very vengeful God, or it can be. Also claims to be very forgiving. Yet when his own son did something that he didn't like, his son in this case being Lucifer, who used to be an angel, the angel of the light bringer, cast him out of heaven for all eternity to hell to rule over the damned forever. This was not something, he wanted to do, right? This was sort of a, hey, you go take care of that part forever. So, he's down there, he's pissed off about being down there, and he's not going to make your life any better. So it lends yourself as a kid with a ton of questions. And then you read about the abuses, you read about other things that have gone on within the Catholic Church, and it brings a lot of questions, even more questions. So as a young adult, and actually even to this day, when something comes out that is about Catholic Church news, I pay attention. I'm not a practicing Catholic anymore because of lots of different reasons. But one of the things that I came across a couple of years ago was this book that was talking about Pope Pius, the whatever the number was during World War II, and just in the time prior to World War II, where the Pope tried to go get an audience with Hitler to try to talk to him about different things. The Pope Pius wanted to be a player on the world stage outside of the church, and he wanted to get involved and try to help with things. Hitler said no. Hitler didn't want the audience. Adolf Hitler refused to see the Pope because he felt the church's history with young men, little boys, was bad for Hitler's image. Adolf Hitler didn't want to be seen with the Pope as it was bad for his image. I would question the book, but it was a Pulitzer Prize winning book, and I checked the references, and it is very well referenced. Leaves you with some questions, some of which wind up in the book. And in the book, one of the premises we got to play with were, what happens when you take that whole eye for an eye premise sort of to its logical conclusion, and you find somebody who has been truly evil here on earth and they need to be punished in the same fashion they've punished other people. What do you do to that person? And more importantly, what do you do to the child molester? What do you do to somebody who's been extremely unfaithful in their marriage? What do you do to the person that uses money to get out of hurting and maiming other people? What do you do to the guy who runs a human trafficking organization that the police can't get anything on? But because you have this thing called confession, priests have a much better intelligence network sometimes than police do, and they can find stuff out about people, right? Somebody comes in to confess because they feel bad, do the math, right? Where's it go? Um, and This priest kind of takes it to its end all conclusion. Now, the interesting thing about this book is if you were the writer like I am, I wonder if Mike has this problem too, my co-author. Uh, well, Mike's been married forever, but being single, one of the fun things to me is, sometimes people will pick up my books and hear about them through mutual friends or whatever. And this particular one, somebody I know I ran into who is the mother of a friend, one of my 14-year-old's friend, it's his mother. Uh, friend whose child spends a lot of time at my house. So it came up with questions of, do you write this book? It's your name, can't it has to be you. My last name is kind of weird, right? So you don't see too many of those. And how many Timothys are you going to find, right? I go by Tim, but how many are you going to find? And it begged the question of, hey, I'd like to talk to you about this book you wrote. Do you think about these things often? I was like, think about what? Brutally murdering people, staking them to the ground, and carrying out these brutal murder scenes. Like, no, but my browser history when I was researching it probably wasn't the best thing in the world to go look at. Me going to the library, checking out books that are pretty old, nah, probably not the best thing to go look at. So it did bring up some questions. I was out recently, and this was another fun one for me as an author and for me as a single dad. I was out the other day, and I've been forever since I've been single, so of course I didn't realize the first thing anybody does when they meet somebody or want to start going out with somebody is they Google them. Who knew? And this popped up, right? So it lent itself to some questions to the person who happens to be a youth pastor. Didn't know she was a youth pastor. I read her at a bar. Um, Brought up some questions. Wound up not meeting that person for a drink later, but that's beside the point. The book itself, I think, helped me in particular work through some things that I had when I was a kid, some questions I had when I was a kid. It helped me kind of think through a lot of what the Catholic Church was saying, and it helped me really research a lot of what organized religion does, especially bigger churches, bigger, huge apparatus churches. And I found some very bad abuses that go on in the name of God. In the name of whatever organized religion you happen to be in. And I found also a lot of people that are shockingly hypocritical about what's in the book versus what they put in life versus what they say on Sunday versus how they live their life. I found even a lot of preachers at some of the mega churches will warp the words in the book to suit their own purposes. And to me, as you research that stuff and you look at the world around us, you think there's some good stuff in the Bible. There's some bad stuff in the Bible. There's some things that should be put into practice and some things that, certainly should be looked at carefully. But it also says a lot of people who just take blind faith without asking questions, at least I think, at what some of these larger organization churches do, especially the huge mega churches and in some cases the Catholic Church, who has a track record with little boys. It is not great. Um, it it lends itself to the question of why are these in the name of God, why are these people working for God if they have these problems? And how much forgiveness are you willing to give somebody because, well, is the good they're doing outweighing the bad? I got to ask those questions to myself every day. I grew up in the Catholic faith, but at this point in my life, I don't consider myself a religious person. I don't go to church. Um, would I consider myself a faithful person? Do I believe in God? I get that question a lot from different people. Do you believe in God? I live in Texas, so you wind up with a lot of people here that's one of the first questions you get asked. It Do you believe in God? Do you believe in an afterlife? And the big question is, well, it depends, right? I tend to take the Dan Aykroyd approach from Ghostbusters and say, yeah, do I believe in God? Never met him. Yeah, no, no. We'll see what happens. You try to live your life the best way you know how. And if I'm going to be punished and not sent to heaven because I didn't go to church on Sunday, but I lived my life as best I knew how to do it, yeah, so much. That's okay. My problem. But I hope you enjoy the book. If you like serial killer books, that certainly we've had some people look at us a little bit funny about the way we took a few people out. Will there be a sequel to it? There Possibly. I'm not necessarily working on one hardcore at the moment. I'm working on a sequel to something else, and I've got one other book I want to work on after that. So there could be a sequel to this one. I don't know though. I think I like it as a standalone. It works very well as sort of a one-off. So, if you're into serial killer books, take a look. If you want to protest me for, taking a hold of your religion and saying bad things about it, okay, sorry. But I hope everybody has a great week. And click like, subscribe, or follow.